please take their seats.
You might need it.
Clerk will please unlock the machine. All members record their presence by pressing the green button. Any members present not yet recorded, please hit the green button.
Symbolic of your day.
All members, please vote. Hit the green button for your attendance. Clerk will lock the machine. There are 49 members present. We have a quorum. All rise for the invocation and pledge to be given by Representative Speakman, who will also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Speakman.
We ask your blessing on all our representatives and leaders of government. Guide them with your wisdom to work to protect the weakest among us. Inspire us to do whatever we can to help the most vulnerable in our communities. And please keep our speaker and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Representative Speakman. I want to just take 1 minute on a personal note and thank all of my colleagues for the kind wishes, and I appreciate it. I gave a brief statement to the press before session, and while this is quite frankly very devastating to me in my professional life, this will not affect the people's business here at the State House. We will continue with session and committees, and I want to thank everybody again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The next order of business is the approval of the journal. Is there any objection to the approval of the journal of the previous legislative day? Hearing none, so ordered. Next order of business is communication. Clerk, do we have any communications?
Yes, we do, Speaker.
Please read and place on file.
Representative Gregory Cosentino is unable to attend session today, Wednesday, May 12th, 2021. Representative Charlene Lima is unable to attend session today. Representative Carlos Tobon is unable to attend session today. Representative Michelle McGaugh is unable to attend session today. And Representative Jay Edwards is unable to attend session today, Wednesday, May 12th, 2021.
Thank you. Committee reports. Are there any committee reports? There are none. Let's go to new business. Is there any new business? Chairwoman Serpa with new business. Any other new business? We can always come back to new business. Clerk, next item is calendar. Next order of business is today's calendar. Please read the first item on today's calendar.
Item number 1, number 6249, sub A.
Chairman Abney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Item number 1, 6249 sub A by Chairwoman McEntee. This act addresses the current work shortage by increasing the amount of partial unemployment compensation that a claimant can earn before being disqualified from unemployment benefits. Currently, a claimant can earn up to the weekly benefit rate before being disqualified. The act would allow a claimant to earn up to 150% of the weekly benefit rate before being disqualified. This act would also increase the disregarded amount of earnings when calculating weekly benefits from 20% of the weekly benefit rate to 50% of the weekly benefit rate. This act would sunset on June 30th, 2022. The committee heard extensive testimony in support from small businesses, especially restaurant owners, citing the inability to hire staff. The Department of Labor and Training, the General Treasurer, the Rhode Island Hospitality Association, and the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition also testified in support. It's a good bill, and I move passage.
Thank you. Chairman Abney moves passage, seconded by Representative Carson, Representative Amore, Representative Speakman, Representative Phillips, Representative Caldwell, Chairwoman Ruggiero, Representative McEntee, Chairman Shanley, Leader Blazajewski, Representative Agello, Representative Cortrovan, Representative Kazar, Representative Bennett, Representative Slater, Representative Tanzi, Chairman McNamara, Deputy Whip Ackerman, Chairwoman Fogarty, Chairman Hull, Representative Rangel-Vassar, Chairman Craven, Representative O'Brien, Representative Casimiro, Representative Potter, Representative Alzate, Representative Shawcross-Smith, Representative Bia, and Representative Donovan. Representative McEntee on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members of the House. I call this bill Getting Back to Business and Back to Work. Anybody who goes out these days sees help wanted signs in almost every establishment, restaurants, markets, gift shops, retail, you name it, all small businesses need help. The businesses are unable to fill much needed positions in order for them to reopen completely. I don't need to go into what the pandemic has done to small business. We all know that. They've been hit particularly hard. And the other business that has really been hit hard is the tourism industry in Rhode Island. And we know that's one of our major economic engines. As chairwoman of small business, I have personally been contacted by loads and loads of businesses, many in my own district. As you all know, I'm from Narragansett and South Kingstown. We rely heavily on our summer tourism industry in both towns. I'm going to just name a few of the businesses in my own area in South County that have contacted me. George's, the Coast Guard House, the Muse Tavern, Twin Willows, Melgy's Diner, Ballads of Block Island, Ocean Tides Group Home in Narragansett, Dave's Marketplace, the Newport Chamber of Commerce, the Rhode Island Black Business Association, and more, but those are just to name a few. And then others around the state. I know other representatives on small business have also been contacted by their businesses. By passing this bill today, we are one of the first states out of the gate to address the problem of people not going back to work and businesses not being able to fill these positions. And the way we're doing this is by changing our unemployment laws. This bill is designed to encourage people to get back to work as much as they can and still get the federal boost, the $300. I call it the three-quarter time bill because that's about what it does. If you watch the news today, you'll see that this is not just a Rhode Island problem, this is a national problem. This is a national problem, and we as a legislative body can become national leaders by passing this legislation. This bill is a win-win for Rhode Island's business community and the workers they rely on. It will allow unemployment insurance claimants to work more, earn more, and still collect a partial unemployment insurance payment, keeping them connected to the system and the safety net that they and their families rely on while returning to work after over a year of not working. It also helps Rhode Island businesses to find the talent they need to reopen and get back to business. Our economy needs this. Our businesses are begging for it. I want to thank all of my co-sponsors, Representative Carson, Felix, Cortfriend, Phillips, Constantino, Geraldo, Fogarty, Caldwell, and Kazarian for also supporting this bill. I'd also like to thank, Mr. Speaker, Matt Weldon, our new director of DLT, who has spent tireless hours coaching me and helping me figure out how to write this bill. He is the brains behind this bill, so we need to give him a big kudos on this. I want to thank Dale Venetrini and Sarah Bracco from the hospitality industry, and I especially want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for intervening several times to understand the bill and make sure this bill gets to the floor. I want to say to all of you today that small business in Rhode Island needs our help, and Mr. Speaker, help has arrived. So please, I urge you, this is a great bill. I urge passage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Representative Fenton Fung, and then Representative Cortravian.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairperson yield for a question?
The sponsor or the chairman of the committee?
Doesn't matter, whichever one wants to take it.
Chairwoman McEntee, do you want to take the question? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairwoman. We heard extensive testimony in the House Finance Committee meeting, and it was just heartbreaking, one restaurant after another after another. Currently, how much percentage-wise, we're talking about people who are currently on unemployment insurance, how many of them actually work at all?
There are approximately 67 to 68,000 Rhode Islanders on unemployment. Approximately 9% of them are working part-time and still collecting unemployment.
So this bill, in effect, helps those 9%, correct?
No, this will help all of the people to go back to work. One of the other things that needs to be mentioned here is on May 23rd, the administrative order is going back into effect by DLT for the job search program, where if you're offered comparable wages, you have to take the job. So with this bill and that administrative order going into effect, this will get a lot of people back to work.
I do agree. I think the administrative order will do amazing amounts. I was talking to one of the commerce associations here in town, and just a couple weeks ago, they had 75 people apply for different positions across restaurants. Only 7 showed up for the interview, and all 7 were offered a job, and only 1 took it. So the need, we're saying
Absolutely.
the same thing. So I think that administrative order is going to be the kicker right here. My point being is that I'm not going to vote against this because it's going to help that 9%. Right now, 91% of people have said, I'd rather stay home. Why work at all? My benefits have gotten me this far. I was talking to 3 restaurant owners over the weekend. Great guys, they own establishments that have been around for 30, 40 years plus. They said they can't they said that's fine, pass this bill. It doesn't matter, they're not coming back. This is the first summer these guys can get paid and not work. It's not gonna do much. However, for that 9% that really want to work, I agree. Hey, look, you can work a few more hours. You can get another $130 about per week. So I see the benefit. There was a Providence Journal poll that was just released about an hour before we came in here, when it was talking about how people in this state want us to use the federal stimulus money, okay? They want us to use it on small business. So when there are stimulus programs like other states are running with, in fact, now 3 states in the past week have talked about statewide incentive programs as a bridge program to come back. They're exploring that and going down that road. We're hearing from people that they want us to spend money on small business, use this federal stimulus money. My problem isn't with the bill. I think, it's going to help a few people. That's great, okay? However, It's not going to help the other 91% right now who just rather sit home. And when I think we need to rise to the occasion, rise to what this pandemic shows us, is that we need to be bold. And so to that, I'm happy to vote for this today and help a few people out. I just wish that the legislature over the next few weeks and months considers bold proposals to make our small businesses that have fought every step of the way. They have done everything that has been asked of them. They have put plexiglass up all over their restaurant. They have put people outside with heat lamps in the middle of December, 8 feet apart. They've done everything that has been asked of them. They came to the legislature asking for bold proposals. I hope that in addition to your bill today, that we pass even bolder proposals in the next few weeks to rise to this occasion as clearly the people demand. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
If I may, Speaker, or do I have to go press the button again?
Representative Cortravin, if you want to speak a second time, I'll allow you, but let Representative Cortravin's up next.
Okay.
Thank you. After Representative Cortravin will be Representative Price.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I rise in strong support as a small business owner in the marine trades. I know this problem isn't just restaurants. Everybody in my industry is suffering the exact same problem. So I encourage my colleagues to support this. And I think to what Representative Fenton Fung was saying, we're trying to encourage those part-time workers or more of people on unemployment to join those part-time ranks because there'll be a better incentive to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Price, and then we'll come back to Chairwoman McEntee. Do you have a microphone up there, by any chance? I thought there was one. No? Mm-hmm. Yes, much better. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. And we're having a microphone brought up to you right now. Thank you. Chairwoman McEntee, and then we'll go to Representative Alzate after that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to correct some of what my colleague, Representative Fenton Fung, was saying. This bill is going to get probably 90% of the people back to work. This 9% are the ones that are already working part-time. I'm going to explain this bill very simply, and if you can all listen, it's probably a little tedious, but if you make a base benefit rate of $300 a week currently, you're staying home and you're getting $600 with the federal boost. And currently the law allows for you to only work 20% of your base rate, which would be $60 of that $300, before they start deducting from your base rate. Now what we're going to let people do is work 150% of their base rate and still collect the $300. But we're also adding to this is you can work 50% of your base rate and still get your $600. So with the scenario of the $300, where you're making $600 staying home, currently you go back to work, you can earn up to $660 with the 20%. with this bill, you could go back to work even if it's 50% of your base rate, and you can make $750. So there is an incentive. Now, on top of that, you can work 150%, which is what I call the three-quarter time, which then you would make the $450 plus the $300. So you're always going to make more by going back to work. So this, and with the Search for Work program back in place, they're going to have to take a comparable job. They can't just stay home. But this bit about only 9%, that 9% is currently working part-time under our laws that we have right now. This is going to increase substantially with this new law because everyone will benefit. And let's remember, we're still getting those federal funds. We're not asking the state to support an unfunded mandate, which I believe is what my colleagues want. This is a funded mandate. We are giving people $300 a week to pump into the economy, which is what we need. And at the same time, we're allowing them to work to get back into the swing of things. This year has been devastating for everyone. It's not just they don't want to work. There's many reasons why people don't go back to work. Some of it is they haven't worked in so long. It's a mental health issue on top of everything else. We just got to get back to business. And this bill does that. So, you know, all the naysayers can say what they want, but this is a step in the right direction, and we need to do this, and there is no other bill that is funded like this one is. The federal funds keep coming in, and they will keep coming in, and we don't have to look for money somewhere else. So this is a win-win for Rhode Island workers and businesses and the economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Representative Alzate, and then Representative Fenton Fung.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in strong support of this legislation. I wanted to thank the chairwoman for this legislation. This is a bold legislation, and it is, when she first mentioned it, I was so excited because, you know, when we talk about small businesses and it's the springtime and it's coming from somebody in the southern part of the state, it only made me think that this is not only benefiting the southern part of the state, this is benefiting communities like mine, Pawtucket, Central Falls, Providence, Cranston, Woonsocket. I see we're hiring signs all over my community, and I understand why people in my community are not able to apply for these jobs. We understand that what they're making on unemployment is a little bit more than what they would be making on regular, you know, full-time or part-time work. So we know that there is a problem. What this legislation does addresses that part of the problem and allows us to be bold and be courageous in what it is that we're doing. This legislation is going to help communities like mine and people like me to allow us to get back to work, to make sure that our economy is booming. We talk about small businesses, and we particularly think about mom and pop restaurants. As someone who is very proud to have worked in the service industry, I can tell you that it is extremely hard to start off being a server or a bartender on what they pay us, whether it's minimum wage or if it's a tipped minimum wage, something of those sorts. So to be able to have the benefit of still collecting partial unemployment while going back to work, whether it's starting on part-time, this is huge. This helps us. And so for that, Chairwoman, thank you so much for being bold in this legislation. And thank you to Matt Weldon for, I know that he is working super hard on behalf of all of Rhode Islanders, but to be a part of this is like the icing on the cake. So thank you. And I urge all of my colleagues to please support this legislation.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Fenton Fung, and then Representative Price for the second time. Representative Price, do you want to, is it an old light, or do you want to speak after Representative Fung? Yes, please. I'm sorry? Yes, please. Okay, Representative Fenton Fung, and then we'll go up to Representative Price.
Thank you so much, Speaker. My point being is that when we're talking about and I'm actually very happy that Chairwoman McEntee helped to raise out the numbers. If they're not going back to work right now for a couple of hours, whether it's 20%, whatnot, they're not going back for that extra 100 and 150, not in the numbers that we think. I hope they do. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But there's a reason why businesses have reached out and said, hey, look, I can't get people to come back 10 hours. If they come back 15, that doesn't help us here. There are catering companies who are very aware that right now, they don't have the staff to come back. Okay? There are weddings that will go unmanned. They know this. We all agree on the problem. And Chairwoman McEntee, you're a very smart woman, and you understand how this is going to proceed over the next few months. If they're not coming back now to work a few hours, they're not going to come back to work more and only get another $100, like $150 under that scenario. I think when we're talking about being bold, we have to listen to our small business owners. They're looking at programs like out in Montana, like South Carolina, like in Arkansas, all in the past week, have gone towards incentive programs that will actually get people back full-time and off unemployment. Right now, we're spending the money in the federal fund side. Other incentive programs would get us off of that and then move us towards just a regular incentive program. If the people are demanding us to use these stimulus money to help small businesses, let's do that. Let's pass this bill and let's work on even bolder legislation over the weeks to come so that the summer season, which is so make it or break it for so many small businesses here in Rhode Island, will be fruitful. We'll get people back to work. We'll enjoy the event season. But right now, this show falls woefully short. And I encourage everybody to be bold in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Price, and then Representative Carson.
Thank you, Speaker. I think that my colleague just said exactly what I was going to say as far as, if they're not getting universal income, they're not going to want to come back to work. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Carson, and then Representative Perez.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I want to make 2 points. The first one is that on Aquidneck Island, there are 1,000 jobs currently open in the hospitality industry. So clearly, we need to give incentives for these folks to go back to work. The second thing I want to say is that creating a coherent policy during this COVID experience of the past 15 months has been very complicated. It's been complicated for this chamber. We didn't meet last year very much. We've tried to synchronize with what the federal government has done. The federal government and the leadership there has changed. And I think that we've done the very best that we can to build a coherent policy. And when we say that people would rather be on unemployment than go back to work, then I think that speaks to the fact that they're making more money on unemployment than at their jobs. And I'm really glad that we passed the increase in the minimum wage last week, because that's what it tells me when I look at this, that people would rather take the unemployment claims than work for maybe $10 or $11, $9 or $10 an hour. I think that people are behind on their bills. Landlords are suffering because folks couldn't pay their bills the last 12 to 15 months. I think that this is a good injection of money into the economy, and I think that it's a wise idea on our part to really make our residents feel good, get some money in their pockets, get some money in the economy, and get some folks back to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Perez, please.
Speaker, I think it's the first time that I get out in here to say something before to apologize for something that I did wrong. But, Speaker, yesterday I was walking in my district, knocking doors, and I get people here now talking about salaries and how much they make, but people are forgetting that we're still on the pandemic. Yesterday, I was knocking door, like I say. Many people were afraid to open the door. Then you're telling me that you want them to go to work? Rhode Island lifted already the emergency status that we are, or something. I missed something? because people really are still afraid. We're still using this mask. Then you're telling the people to go to a restaurant or to whatever to serve others, they're still in risk of getting infected, and people are still dying. So I'm supporting this bill because it's not everybody that's ready to go out. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman Casey, your light is lit. Is it a second? Did you want to second the bill? Thank you, Representative. So ordered. Representative Caldwell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of this bill. One quick point is that the states that Representative Fenton Fung was we're talking about, those programs they have are largely unfunded mandates where they have to find the state funds to use for that, which we do not have to do with Chairwoman McEntee's bill. I also want to just touch on one thing Chairwoman McEntee mentioned, which is that Matt Weldon had a huge hand in helping to craft this bill. I think one thing we can all unanimously agree on is that Matt Weldon has been the rock star of this pandemic for all of us and our constituents. And I think, placing our trust in him, that he knows what will help get people back to work in concert with making people search for employment is, someone we can really put our trust in that this is going to be some meaningful, bold legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I know a couple of people have said Matt Weldon. Before I was the Speaker, I was Majority Leader, and before I was Majority Leader, I was Chairman of Labor, and Matt Weldon would regularly appear before me representing various departments, and somebody said at that time, and it turned out to be almost clairvoyant and true, Matt Weldon is the hardest working state worker, and I think he is, and I echo your comments on that. And with that, we have no lights. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All those in the affirmative, please vote green. Any in the negative, please vote red. Leader Blazajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 47 of the House Rules, I have proxy votes in favor of the following, in favor of item number 1 from the following representatives: Baginski, Cosentino, Edwards, Felix, Giraldo, Kazarian, Charlene Lima, Stephen Lima, Lombardi, Marzukowski, McGaugh, Solomon, and Tabone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Leader Filippi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same request in the affirmative, Representative Roberts. In the negative, Representative Quattrochi, please. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Clerk, will please lock the machine. What's it? Chairwoman, we can record your vote. There we go. 69, clerk, please lock the machine. 69 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. The act shall prevail. Thank you. Clerk, next docket item, please.
Item number 2, number 5890, sub A.
Chairman Shanley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 5890, sponsored by myself, makes a few changes to the mail ballot process. Number 1, it expands the number of days that the Board of Elections has to begin counting mail ballots before the election from 14 days to 20 days. This gives them 6 days more to start the counting process so that the results will be, or at least more of the results will be available on election night or sooner after election night. The second thing it does is establish a certification review process for the signatures that appear on mail ballots. And it's a 4-tiered approach with different levels of review to ensure that the signature on the mail ballot application matches the signature on the certification envelope that the voter sends back. So there was virtually no testimony in opposition to this bill. I think it's a good bill. It only makes our mail voting process more secure and does nothing to change the existing notary and signature requirements. So I move passage.
Chairman Shanley moves passage, seconded by Chairwoman McEntee, Leader Blazajewski, Chairwoman Ruggiero, Representative Caldwell, Representative Morales, Representative O'Brien, Chairman Craven, Representative Henrys, Representative Amore, Representative Carson, Representative Donovan, Chairman Abney, Representative Cardillo, Chairwoman Williams, Chairman Bennett, Representative Representative Casimiro, Representative Barrows, Representative Potter, Chairman Corvese, Representative Cortravian, Representative Knight, Deputy Whip Ackerman, Chairman McNamara, Chairman Corvese, Chairman Azanaro, Representative Norrie, Chairwoman Fogarty, Representative Agello, Representative Shawcross Smith, Representative Tansey, Chairman Hull, Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson, and Representative Messier. On the bill, Representative Price, and then Representative Fenton-Fung.
Thank you, Speaker. I guess my question is, if there's no change to the voting process, as the sponsor said, why are we putting this bill in? If you could explain that. The sponsor.
Chairman Shanley, please. You want to take that? You can address it to me.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. It's a little bit like Romeo and Juliet with him up in the balcony.
I won't comment on that.
Representative Price, it doesn't change the signature requirement for having two witnesses sign on or a notary public sign on to verify that the voter signed the document. What this does is it installs a review process to make sure the signature of the voter matches other signatures that the Board of Elections has on file in its central database.
Correct, but it's two appointed officials that are going to certify that? Is that correct?
There are
Romeo?
Okay, Juliet.
Can we keep the decorum, please?
Yes, there's a three-tiered review process that includes an opportunity for interested parties to be heard and considered in an appeal to the Board of Elections directly.
Thank you.
So who appoints those two people that are going to actually confirm the signature? There's going to be two people that are going to be confirmed. It's going to be one Republican, one Democrat, one unaffiliated. Who's going to confirm that designation of to confirm the signature?
They won't have partisan affiliations, but the whole process will be observed by a representative of every major affiliated party in the state if they choose to observe. They'll have the opportunity to observe the process.
On the floor during the process?
Yes.
I mean, so a Republican and a Democrat can be on the floor looking at the signature, confirming the signature that's being confirmed by these two elected or proposed people that are going to, look at the signature, correct?
Correct. They'll have the opportunity to appeal any voter signature.
Okay, thank you.
There are no other lights. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All those in the affirmative, please vote green. Any in the negative, please vote red. Leader Blazajewski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 47 of the House Rules, I have proxy votes in favor of item number 2 from the following representatives: Baginski, Costantino, Edwards, Felix, Giraldo, Kazarian, Charlene Lima, Stephen Lima, Lombardi, Marzukowski, McGaugh, Solomon, and Tabone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Leader Filippi, please.
Thank you, Speaker. Same request in the affirmative, Representative Roberts. In the negative, Representative Quattrochi. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 7 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. The act shall prevail. Next docket item, please.
Item number 3, number 5586 sub A.
Chairman Hull.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, my colleagues. House Bill 5586 sub A by myself, an act relating to taxation property subject to tax exemption. I'd like to get it in moving, so I say the Committee on Municipal Government and Housing recommends indefinite postponement of the original of the original bill and the passage of Sub A, and I'd like to speak on the bill.
So I take it you're moving the Sub A?
Correct.
Chairman Hull moves the bill, seconded by Representative Phillips, Chairman Corvese, Representative Slater, Chairman McNamara, Chairwoman Fogarty, Leader Blazajewski, Chairman Abney, Representative Cardillo, Representative O'Brien, Chairwoman Bella Wilkinson, Chairman Azanaro, Chairman Bennett, Representative Morgan, Representative Fenton Fung. Representative Morales, I assume you are not seconding? No. Okay, you just want to be recognized to speak, correct? Thank you. The lights are different color. Representative Casimiro, seconded, as well as Representative Morgan and Chairman McNamara. On the bill, Chairman Hull, and then we will go to Representative Morales after you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, my distinguished colleagues. Before you have the LaSalle bill, it's kind of scary for me being someone from LaSalle Academy, because it almost felt like I was vilified, that I was being attacked for going to LaSalle. Not for the bill itself, but it was LaSalle. I have a couple of points that I want to bring up to make you try to understand how passionate I am about an institution that I was educated at. But not just for that, but for what it does and the fairness of the bill and why it's coming forward. First of all, for most people who don't understand or don't know, LaSalle Academy's been around since 1871, 150 years. LaSalle Academy sits on 26 acres in Mount Pleasant. My neighborhood, the area I represent, I'm passionate about territory. I learned that 34 years as a policeman, that if you take care of the area that's in front of you, everything else will fall in place. But if you don't take care of what's in front of you or what you have at your disposal, you make a vital mistake. As I look at LaSalle, I say to each and every one of you, this can very well happen to all of you if you have something you're passionate about and something you can speak to. Because if there's something that's unfair, that's not fairly justly put, and this tax is not fairly put, because there are other institutions in the city that are not taxed equally. I'm not here to pit one institution or another. I just want to be recognized as being fair, and LaSalle wants to be fair in it. And if you're going to tax everybody, you're going to tax LaSalle also with everybody else. The Sub A that came over from the Senate, which is pretty good, it says we're not going to allow LaSalle to move, to expand. And the Sub A speaks fine to it. LaSalle has no intentions of expanding, and you might hear that from individuals. LaSalle is using every bit of their land for the educational institution that it is. And yes, we can speak to LaSalle that it has money. Yeah, it does have money. It's a private institution, but it's a private institution that sits in my district, that does things for my district. It's an anchor in my community. And with that anchor, I have to defend it. I have to. And if you don't defend something where you're at, we'll go right back to where I started. You're no good to represent that area. So please try to understand that in me and where I'm going and why I'm defending this bill and why this bill needs to pass. There were several other institutions in this city that I refuse to mention that pay zero, and I'm not talking about Brown University. It's a whole nother story. And when they say, did you get any resolution from the city? No, I didn't get a resolution from the city, but I do have a letter from the number 2 in the city of Providence. And she is Joanne Ryan, the majority leader. And she states, if I may, LaSalle Academy has been a tax-exempt establishment in the city of Providence since 1871. This isn't something new. They've been tax-exempt. They're not asking to be. They have been. And for the other people who think that, oh, it's just another religious institution that's looking for something, no. LaSalle Academy has disaffiliated itself from the Diocese of Providence. I want to say at least 10 or 15 years ago, where the Christian Brothers took over the institution, which is another Catholic order. And their primary mission is to educate people. And that's all they want to do. As I conclude, this bill is nothing more than fairness. There are other institutions in the city of Providence that do the same thing. They educate people that are not paying anything. I just don't want LaSalle to be the Tesco for other institutions who need to pay. And I'm not afraid to say, LaSalle, if everybody else is going to pay, LaSalle's going to pay. But if the other institutions aren't paying and they're doing the same thing, then you need to afford LaSalle the same rights. For you new individuals who have just entered the chamber, be passionate what you believe in, stay true to form, and understand when you have an issue that's passionate to yourself, you come out and defend it, and I don't care what anybody else says. Because you speak for your district and for the constituents that you represent. With that, Mr. Speaker, I say thank you to my distinguished colleagues, and I move passage.
Thank you, Representative. We've already moved the bill. Representative Morales, and then Chairman Shanley after that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, as the state representative for House District 7, which encompasses the Mount Pleasant neighborhood where LaSalle Academy is directly located, I rise in strong opposition to this bill, which would grant them with full tax exemption status. Now, according to our state's tax law, religious institutions are exempt from taxation for their first 5 acres of land. Academic institutions are exempt from their first acre of land. Given that LaSalle Academy occupies 26 acres of land, however, there are 20 acres of land that are eligible for taxation for the city of Providence. And as Representative Hull briefly touched on, in terms of their finances, yes, LaSalle Academy is a private institution with an annual tuition of over $15,000 that enrolls roughly over 1,600 students. And according to their last fiscal year report, all of their publicly reported endowments are worth well over $14 million, and these are just for the ones whose values were disclosed, as there were over 40 endowments in that report that did not disclose the amounts. In addition, they receive millions of dollars each and every single year in terms of corporate gifts alongside contributions from alumni, and these are separate from endowment gifts as well. So clearly, LaSalle Academy has more than enough revenue and assets to pay their fair share in property taxes, just like every other property owner in the city of Providence, and specifically in the Mount Pleasant and Elmhurst neighborhood. And unlike other tax exemption bills that we pass in this chamber, this bill, which would lose our city's tax base of $100,000, this one does not have a city council resolution in support of it. Instead, it is opposed by several members of the city council who have also sent letters in opposition, and the state senator representing the neighborhood. So as a chamber, I hope we can agree that unless a respective city or town is supportive of legislation affecting their tax base, we should not be telling them what to do, especially for a city like Providence, where over 40% of our land is already exempt from taxes. Therefore, if we were to pass this bill and provide LaSalle with full tax exemption status, it will be the working people and middle-class families of Providence who will have to subsidize this tax deal. After all, a tax base that continues to shrink year after year will only lead to an increase in local property taxes, a cuts in city services, or it will force the city to beg the state for additional funding. In other words, Providence will once again ask for the state to bail them out. Furthermore, the passage of this bill will create a dangerous precedent across the state, as other private K-12 institutions will see this tax exemption and begin to request their own. And for context, only 4 private K-12 institutions in the state of Rhode Island have tax exemption status enabled through legislation. And for each of these had a city council resolution in support of it. And before I close, I do want to address the slippery slope argument of Brown University and other institutions that do not pay their fair share. It is important to note that for each of these institutions, however, their tax exemption status did not come from legislation. Instead, it came from an outdated and broken state charter from 1764. Therefore, instead of moving in the wrong direction and rubber stamping tax exemptions like this one, we should be focusing on overriding this outdated charter and putting our municipalities on a path to maximize tax revenue from wealthy institutions that continue to not pay their fair share. And for context, I was told by the mayor that as a result of this legislation, there is already another legislation in the works to get another private K-12 institution tax exemption status, which will be presented to the Assembly either through 7D or next year. So we are already seeing the precedent being set. Now, despite all the facts and logics I have just presented, we will still hear the misleading notion that yes, LaSalle is an anchor to the community of Mount Pleasant and Elmhurst. However, let's be clear. Of the 1,600 students they enroll, only 190 of them are residents from Providence, and only 13% of them are students of color. Simply put, it is not fair to say that they're actively serving in a community that justifies tax exemption status. And I also just want to be clear before I close that my opposition to this bill is not an attack on LaSalle, it is not an attack on the Catholic Church. Instead, it is a basic principle of being a good neighbor
30 seconds,
in the community you reside in, and paying your fair share just like every other working person in the neighborhood. So as a representative who has held community town halls and conversations around this issue, almost every neighbor that I have spoken to believes LaSalle should be paying taxes in accordance to state law, regardless of who their alumni are. So for that, colleagues, I ask that you vote against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Shanley, and then Representative Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill, but in opposition to the principle of what we're doing here today. If you go to page 1 of the bill, subsection 5, it lists properties that are currently tax exempt. And included there are buildings for free public schools, buildings for religious worship, and the land upon which they stand and immediately surrounding them to an extent not exceeding 5 acres. So LaSalle's religious and educational use land is already tax exempt. The problem is there are a number of other schools that they compete with that have all of their additional land that is tax exempt. And it's not fair because these are taxes on land. This is taxes that the city should be able to collect because the lands are not being used for educational or religious use. So for purposes of today, I'm going to support this bill because Representative Hull is 100% accurate. It's not fair to LaSalle. They should be on the same playing field as everybody else. But this is an issue that we should look at closely moving forward because we're going to be ending up subsidizing a lot of cities and towns if they keep extending these exemptions to every school and every organization that serves a noble cause. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Knight, and then we'll go back to Chairman Hull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill, and I recognize that this is an unusual situation. We are being asked to do something for one of our towns, and typically we would say, well, what does the town feel about it? And here we have one rep who likes the bill, and we have another rep who doesn't like the bill. But for me, the issue turns on a couple things. The first one being, like, despite the words on the page, which are the law tells us what the policy is, and the policy is what we set in this room. And the policy is that in Rhode Island, we generally exempt charities, nonprofits, educational institutions, and religious organizations because of what they provide to the community, and often on a shoestring. I'm not saying LaSalle is on a shoestring. However, I know that they are an anchor, a cornerstone of Rhode Island life, and they do a good job and will continue to do a good job for our people. Their influence extends way beyond their their particular student base, because eventually those students come and work for the community that they were educated in. They may go somewhere else, but they might come back. You need only look at the current United States Commerce Secretary to see that in action. Number two, and this is probably the bigger thing, this is to some extent, this is a Providence fight. And I am in no way, shape, or form interested in hearing the crocodile tears for Providence's finances, because Providence did it to himself. Providence is the one that has passed the ultra generous worker packages for their employees. Providence is the one that when you walk into a clerk's office, they have 15 people doing what 2 people do in any other city. Providence is the one where I can barely drive down the street that is not in the east side without ripping the axles off my car because of the potholes. Providence is the one whose crushing pension obligations threaten to sink.
Thank you very much for your point of order. You are correct. Representative Knight, please stick to the bill.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, I am on the bill because the issues that I'm talking about underlie some of the policy decisions that we're making in that bill. But I think I made my point. So, at the end of the day, we're being asked to exempt a religious institution in accordance with our long-standing policy. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with helping out LaSalle do its mission that it's done for Rhode Islanders since the 1800s. If you look at the statute that we're talking about, and you go all the way down to the bottom of it when you look in the books, that statute was created in the 1800s and has been amended a bunch of times. So this is not, fundamentally, this is not as easy a call as it typically is, because we have representatives from the same town disagreeing, but that's where I land, and I appreciate the body's indulgence with my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Hull, and then Representative Agello.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the second time, the last time. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I think it's important to talk about LaSalle student body, in that it's an inner city school. And I think everyone needs to understand this. LaSalle student body, grades 6 to 12, is currently 1,482. 1,302 students are in high school from grades 9 to 12. 179 students in the middle school, 68. 26% of the high school students are people of color. 32% of the high school freshman class are students of color. 26% of the middle school are students of color. As long as I can work with LaSalle, and as long as I live in a city where the majority of the city now is made up of people of color, I will advocate to LaSalle to make sure black, brown, yellow, white, get educated at LaSalle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Agello and then Representative Morales for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I have spoken with the chairman, the sponsor, about this bill. I feel better that there is an amendment added to make it clear that this is for the existing land that LaSalle owns. But I'm very concerned about the or maybe language. Buildings currently in use or buildings that may be added. Brown University is in my district, and I hear a lot from constituents in my district and around the city and around the state in complaint about Brown's not paying taxes. Brown has a substantial amount of property on Thayer Street that is developed and has maybe dormitories on the upper floors, but commercial space on the first floor, on the storefront. Brown is paying taxes on that property. If at some future point LaSalle were to choose to develop some of the property there and have space that is rented, perhaps for commerce or industry or I don't know what, as the bill is currently written, that space would also, that building or buildings would also not be taxed. For me, this really isn't about the church. It isn't about a particular school or any school. I just think we need to be very careful, and I am concerned that the Providence School City Council, the organization that we always look to when we're doing things regarding property taxes, exclusion, or liquor license allowance. The Providence City Council has not done a resolution in support. For those two reasons, and really no others, Mr. Speaker and Chairman Hull, I will vote against this.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Morales for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to, again, re-emphasize the fact that this tax deal is not necessary. You have $98,000 that can be taxed. 20 acres of land that is eligible for the City of Providence. And it was not until the year of 2018 that the City of Providence sent a tax bill to LaSalle Academy that they decided that they wanted to pursue this legislation. Fortunately, it did not pass last year. It didn't make it out of committee. This year, they reached out to one of their more prominent alumni, that being the Senate President, and they were able to get it through Senate Finance and pass it relatively quickly without even having to hold it for further study. Again, $98,000 for an institution that has well over $14 million within their endowment and receives millions, tens of millions of dollars within corporate gifts, again, not including what's in their endowments. And the fact that I've had intentional conversations with the community that I have the honor to represent about this, and have actually spoken to the homeowners that literally live right in front of LaSalle Academy, and they disagree with it, I think that speaks a lot of volume alongside the fact that there was not a formal city council resolution in support of this. So again, it comes back down to the principle of basic fairness. They reside in Mount Pleasant. We are honored to have them. But the matter of the fact is, they need to be a good neighbor by paying their fair share, just like every other resident, just like every other working person, just like every other middle-class family in the Mount Pleasant and Elmhurst community. And with that being said, again, I urge our colleagues to vote no, because we are sending a wrong message, not only to the people of the state, but essentially other institutions that might try to pursue tax exemption status. We are essentially telling them, you do not need a city council resolution to get your special deal. And again, it's about breaking that culture. And that is why I look forward to working with some of my colleagues to reversing our broken state charter that prevents Brown University from being taxed. Those are one of many issues. But again, it starts with a bill like this, and it starts with rejecting this notion that we're gonna give special favors to different institutions depending on their relationships. So with that being said, again, want to emphasize the idea of basic fairness and the fact that this just isn't necessary because LaSalle Academy will not close their doors if they're required to pay roughly $100,000 a year to the city of Providence, which would in fact actually help us in terms of our own crumbling public school infrastructure. So it's not about interfering with their mission, but simply, again, being a respectful neighbor to the community they reside in. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Casey.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll be brief. I stand in strong support of this bill. I stand with my brother Ray Hull. This is the year of equality, is it not? This is the year we treat everybody equal. If we couldn't call it a special deal, then let's make it a special deal, and because everybody else has been getting the special deal. We include LaSalle, give them their break like everybody else is getting, and that's the definition of equality. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Knight for the second time.
Mr. Speaker, and to my colleagues, more importantly, I don't normally try not to talk too much, but I hear you. I apologize for my vitriol regarding Providence. Those of you who've heard me talk about that issue know where I stand. What was lost, and the point I'm trying to make again, is that I want you to think about two things on this bill, because I really do think that it gets to some core issues that are percolating in the majority party. It's number one, it's not a crime to have money, right? We shouldn't be, you know, a phrase that you hear these days is tax the rich and then nothing else amongst some of my colleagues. That's not good government. That's not, it's certainly not how we do things in the United States, where we try not to punish success. We want people to pay their fair share, for sure. We want to take care, to the extent that we can, of those who are at the bottom of the economic scale, because that's our moral responsibility. And the argument is always, where's the balance, right? How much is too much? We just had it in the unemployment debate. How much is too much? Is that too much? And that is a big question, and I think we'll be fighting about it forever, right? But in this case, there is an issue here beyond just whether or not LaSalle should get the exemption. And what I was trying to get at before is that we are in a vacuum of, in that Providence hasn't expressed an opinion, one way or the other. Dear General Assembly, please do this for us. We don't have that letter. And we don't have the, Dear General Assembly, we don't like this, don't do it for us. We don't have that letter. They're locked in indecision, I guess, and so they're asking us to do something for them. And that's where I revert back to, where's our basic policy? Our basic policy written in that law, which has been amended a bunch of times from the 1800s, is that we grant these exceptions, these exemptions to nonprofit schools and religious organizations, because they often do contribute something. They often do contribute more than their fair share. It's just not monetary. So on those comments, hopefully more calm. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, my colleagues, for your indulgence on a second time at the mic. Please support the bill.
Representative Phillips, please. Representative Morales, you have your light lit, but under Rule 24, you're limited to 2 times. Is that okay? I just want to point that out. If you really want, if you had one salient point, I'd give you 25 seconds, but thank you. Representative Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I normally don't get up and speak, as Representative Knight had just said, but I agree with all my colleagues that have spoken in favor of the bill because this is a fairness bill. The city that I live in happens to hold a educational institution called Mount St. Charles. How many, oh, Speaker, didn't you go to Mount St. Charles?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And I used to have a beautiful plaque on the wall in my office that, that showed
sorry
that.
I gave you a bad memory right now. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. But how many students from Mount St. Charles have gone to the NHL because of Mount St. Charles hockey team?
Many.
About a dozen or so. We just, last week or the week before, we just found out that one of our colleagues' nephew just went in the first round of the NFL. This is positive messages that we are getting for the state of Rhode Island because of these educational institutions. And LaSalle has got a good reputation of sports and education, so why not afford them the same properties that we are affording other people? That's the only point I want to bring up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Chairman Corvese.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll make my comments very brief. I want to support this bill. I strongly support this bill and Chairman Hull and everything that he said so passionately, and especially some of the points that were brought up by Chairman Shanley and Representative Phillips regarding fairness and equity with regard to tax structure vis-a-vis other institutions. But the thing that I wanted to bring up is let's not forget that beyond the issue of fairness, there's also the fact that the institution of LaSalle not only is an asset to the city of Providence and its neighborhood, but it's an asset to the state of Rhode Island. And I think that type of quality and characteristic has to be factored into anything we do here. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other lights. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All those in favor, please vote green. Any opposed, please vote red. Leader Blazajewski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 47 of the House Rules, I have proxy votes in favor of item number 3 from the following representatives: Baginski, Costantino, Edwards, Kazarian, Charlene Lima, Stephen Lima, Lombardi, Marzlikowski, Solomon, and Tabone. And Mr. Speaker, I have proxy votes in opposition to item number 3 from Rep. Felix and Rep. McGaugh. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader Filippi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same request in the affirmative. Representatives Roberts and Quattrochi, please.
Thank you. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 54 in the affirmative, 14 in the negative. The act shall prevail. Thank you. Next docket item, please, Clerk.
Item number 4, Senate 142.
Chairman Solomon, or, sorry, Representative O'Brien.
Thank you, Speaker. This is a very simple bill. It's an act that will allow the sale of alcoholic beverages on New Year's Day by retail Class A licenses. It passed out of committee unanimously, and I move passage.
Vice Chairman O'Brien moves passage. We have seconds from, let me see it over here. Just a sec, okay. Vice Chair Caldwell, Representative Hawkins, Leader Blazajewski, Chairman Abney, Representative Vella Wilkinson, Representative Shawcross Smith, Chairman Corvese, Chairman McNamara, Chairman Casey, Representative Casimiro, Representative Potter, and Representative Price. Do we have any other seconds? And Representative Cardillo. Anyone wishing to speak? We have no lights on the bill. Clerk will unlock the machine. Those in the affirmative, press the green button. Those in the negative, press the red button. Lita Blazewski, what's your proxies?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 47 of the House Rules, I proxy votes in favor of item number 4 from the following representatives: Baginski, Cosentino, Edwards, Felix, Giraldo, Kazarian, Charlene Lima, Stephen Lima, Lombardi, Marzolkowski, McGaw, Solomon, and Tabone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And Lita Filippi?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same request. In the affirmative, Representatives Roberts and Quattrochi, please. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Has everyone in the chamber voted? Clerk will lock the machine. 68 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The act passes. On to announcements and introductions. Yeah. Okay. Announcements and introductions. Okay. Chairman Casey.
Thank you, Speaker. This is a reminder that the House Committee on Health and Human Services is meeting in room 101 at the Rise. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ranglin Vassal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a request, please.
Proceed.
A House resolution.
Proceed.
I cannot hear myself. Thank you. So with the permission of the minority and majority leader, I'd like to introduce a resolution declaring that every teacher in the state of Rhode Island be named Teacher of the Year. I particularly want to send a shout out to my sister Valerie Ranglin Brown, teacher at Central High School. I'd like to send a shout out who has been such a great role model in my life and in the lives of so many children in Rhode Island. I'd also like to send a shout out to my friends Jill Baker, teacher at Halvers High School, and my friend Hercela at Central High School. I'd also like to take this opportunity to send a shout out and to say thank you to all the teachers in my school, E-Cube Academy, who I have the privilege and honor of working with every single day educating children. I also want to take a moment to recognize and to thank my colleagues in the House. Rep. O'Brien, I don't think he's here still.
Yeah, he's in the back.
He's in the back. Rep. O'Brien, where are you?
Yeah, he's in the back.
He's in the back. And also Chairman Amori. Teaching through this pandemic has been really, really hard. It's been really, really hard. I want to say teaching is a work of the heart. It's a mission for the teachers who we were asked to grab up our stuff without any notice, and we were ushered out of the buildings to start teaching online. And then we were ushered out into the building, back into the buildings, working in a pandemic where teachers like myself, who was quarantined twice, and even as I speak, there are teachers that I know who have contracted COVID. We do this work because it's the work of our lives. We do this work because somebody gave us wings. It's teachers why I am standing here today. And so I want to take a moment and to say, thank you, teachers. Thank you, teachers. Not a lot of people sign up to be a teacher because there's not a whole lot of money in it. And there's a lot of disrespect that goes with it. But I would not want to do anything else. I knew I wanted to be a teacher at 6 years old. I was sitting on the ground in my yard, pretending to be Miss Grant, pretending to be Sister Fisher. My preschool teacher, who came to my house when my dad started a church and a school in 1963, when my dad himself did not know how to read or write. I want to thank Sister Fisher, who is in heaven right now, that I got my wings. And so I am presenting this resolution to honor and to recognize all of Rhode Island's teachers who have sacrificed so much to go into those buildings when we know that we could potentially get COVID-19. And finally, for a teacher like myself, who is a special education teacher, you cannot be a special education teacher and be 6 feet from a student. It doesn't work that way. You have to be right beside that child. And so for every special education teacher and every teacher who sits beside children, knowing that we're exposing ourselves to COVID-19, I say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Representative Fenton Fung.
Thank you, Speaker. I have a resolution to introduce for immediate consideration with the permission of the majority and minority leaders, recognizing May as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Asian Americans are the fastest growing minority in the United States, and they're also the ones subjected to a rise in hate crimes of over 25% this spring alone. We are grateful from the Asian American community, what my husband so eloquently represents, for the support of this body for the resolution condemning the anti-Asian hate crimes. On this, though, we get to celebrate the tremendous achievements of Asian Americans. In Providence alone, from counting Southeast Asians, Chinese, it bring a tremendous amount to all of our communities, and in Western Cranston that I represent. We'd like to not only highlight some of the certain local members, but also look at nationally. When we're talking about all the different minorities that need our help, just spend a few extra moments understanding the difficulties that they may be having right now and choosing our words very carefully over the next year will only help them and us get to a better place. So I'm proud to introduce this resolution honoring May 2021 as Asian American Month here in the state of Rhode Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Please send that up. Chairman McNamara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for a few announcements.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, on behalf of the Warwick delegation and actually all of our colleagues in the House, I'd like to just recognize the loss of the Speaker's office and his place of work for his brother and sister, and to let the family know
that his many friends are here for him. Mr. Speaker, I would like to respectfully request that we adjourn in the memory of Michael P. Batalon, and I have a resolution with the consent of both leaders that I would like to move and just say a few words, Mr. Speaker. Michael Batalon was a physical education and health teacher primarily at Pilgrim High School, and he finished his career at Windman. He was a well-known, talented coach in the city of Warwick, and in 2015, he coached the Pilgrim Boys basketball team to a state championship, and he will be greatly missed by his family, his friends, and his students, and it's a horrible loss to the Warwick community. Mr. Speaker, I have one more adjournment. I would like to respectfully request that we adjourn in the memory of Aaron Allison Facasa. She was a wife of Terrence Facasa, who many of our colleagues in the House know, mother of Brendan and Claire Facasa. She was a special education teacher at Cranston East, where she absolutely loved her job, and she passed away much too soon. She was a vibrant member of the community, and her family, extended family and friends will mourn and do mourn her passing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Representative Falella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to wish my daughter a happy 25th birthday today. Thank you.
Representative Norrie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make an announcement and a presentation, if I could.
Proceed.
Thank you, sir. Lorraine Lucas. Lorraine, could you come up here, please? Thank you, Representative Casey.
You're quite welcome.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take a moment and recognize a very special member of the State House staff, Administrative Assistant Lorraine Lucas. Lorraine began her employment here with the Rhode Island Legislature on March 1st, 1993. She initially worked in Ledge Council performing clerical duties, and then later that year transferred to Rhode Island State Government Intern Program as a clerk. In February of 2017, Lorraine transitioned into the role of Administrative Assistant, and she will be retiring on Friday, May 14th, 2021. I wish her well, and on behalf of the Speaker, both majority leaders, and her representatives, myself, Representative Carson, Representative Casimiro, Representative Fenton Fung, Representative Kislak, Representative Morales, and Representative Ruggiero, we'd like to present you with this citation, Lorraine, for your retirement, dedicated and faithful service to the members of the Rhode Island House of Representatives and people of the state of Rhode Island. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate this. I enjoyed my time working at the State House with all the representatives. I'm going to miss everyone. Thank you.
And we'll miss seeing you as well, Lorraine. Congratulations and happy retirement.
Thank you.
Chairman Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the permission of the leader and minority leader, I have a resolution commemorating May 17th to the 23rd as Quahog Week 2021. As you know, if this was under normal circumstances without the weight of the pandemic, we would be enjoying their wares over at the State House right now. They're hardworking men and women, and I'm glad to be recognizing them. And my second thing is under Rule 7D, I will be presenting new legislation on the next business day involving hunting and hunting safety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. You want to send that resolution up, Chairman? Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Announcement, please.
Proceed.
The House Finance Subcommittee on General Government will be meeting at the Rise. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other announcements and introductions before we go to the leader? Leader Blazewski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Announcement, please.
Proceed.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the House will be meeting in session on Tuesday and Wednesday again next week. That's Tuesday and Wednesday next week, both times here at 4 p.m. at the Vets. And yesterday, we all heard that Leader Falella became a grandmother for the second time. And congratulations on the birth of her grandson, Elvis. And we had additional good news on Monday. Was born Thomas Henry Kavanaugh, the third son of Deputy Chief of Staff Steve Kavanaugh and his wife, Jenny. Congratulations to the Kavanaugh family. And Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the whole House, our thoughts are with Speaker Shekarchi and his family during this very difficult time. And last but not least, we have 2 birthdays. First today, Representative McGaugh. Happy birthday to Representative McGaugh. And as well, Speaker Shekarchi's birthday is on Monday. So, Speaker, hope you can have a happy birthday this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. So for our colleagues who were watching this at home because they didn't make it here today, as you said, Tuesday and Wednesday next week here in the Vets. We do have some resolutions. House resolution celebrating May of 2021 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the state of Rhode Island. This was introduced by Representative Fenton Fung, along with sponsors Speaker Shekarchi, Leader Blazewski, Representative Phillips, Representative Slater, Representative Bia, Representative Casimiro, Representative Alzate, Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson, Leader Filippi, Chairwoman Fogarty, Representative Shallcross Smith, and Representative Kennedy. All in favor, say aye. Any opposition? Say nay. Resolution passes. Next resolution we have is a House resolution honoring and recognizing each and every Rhode Island school teacher as 2021 Teachers of the Year. This was introduced by Representative Ranglin Vassal, along with Speaker Shekarchi, Leader Blazewski, Leader Filippi, Chairwoman Fogarty, Representative Tanzi, Chairman McNamara, Representative Donovan, Chairman Abney, Representative Diaz, Chairman Hull, Representative Henrys, Representative Bia, Representative Kislak, Representative Knight, and Kennedy, and many others. All in favor, say aye. Resolution passes. We have a House resolution extending deepest condolences on the passing of Michael P. Batalon, introduced by Chairman McNamara, along with Speaker Shekarchi, Leader Blazewski, Representative Vella Wilkinson, Chairman Bennett, Leader Filippi, and Chairman Shanley. All those in favor, please say aye. It passes. We have a House resolution commemorating May 27th to the 23rd as Rhode Island Quahog Week 2021 in the state of Rhode Island. This was introduced by Chairman Bennett, Speaker Shekarchi, Leader Blazewski, Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson, Chairman Shanley, Chairman McNamara, and many, many others. I know I have a nephew who has his license and does a very good job in this area. All those in favor say aye. Any opposition say nay. Resolution passes. Do we have any other announcements or introductions? Seeing none. Is there any objection to transmitting all matters on the clerk's desk to the governor, the honorable senator, or the secretary of state forthwith? Hearing none, so ordered. Lita Blazkowski moves that the House adjourn, seconded by Lita Filippi, in memory of Michael Batalon and Allison Erin Fracassa. All members, please rise for a moment of silence. The House is adjourned.
House resolution celebrating May of 2021 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the state of Rhode Island. Whereas in 1978, a joint congressional resolution established the first 10 days of May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Week. These particular days were chosen because they coincide with the arrival in the United States of the first Japanese immigrants in May of 1843, and the contributions of Chinese workers to the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, which was completed in May of 1969. And whereas in 1992, Congress expanded the observance to a month-long celebration known as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And in 2021, President Biden issued a proclamation declaring May as Asian American and Native Hawaiian / Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And whereas in 2019, the number of Asian American residents in the United States was 22.9 million, with more than 54% holding a bachelor's degree or higher level of education, and an estimated 577,835 Asian-owned employer firms. In addition, Asian Americans encompass more than 2.5% of America's military veterans. And whereas there are 1.6 million Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders as of 2019, and the percentage of Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders who were military veterans in 2019 was 7.2%. More than 23% hold a bachelor's degree or higher, and 6,653 own employer firms. And whereas the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander workforce can be found in numerous fields, including professional, scientific, and technical services, teaching, financial management, engineering, nursing, healthcare, medicine, social assistance, retail, construction, and repair and maintenance. And whereas Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders have added to the diversity, strength, and vibrancy of our state through their culture, language, and religion, and it is fitting and vital to honor and acknowledge their invaluable contributions. Now therefore be it resolved, this House of Representatives of the state of Rhode Island hereby proclaims May of 2021 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and urges all Rhode Islanders to learn more about the history of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, and to observe this month with appropriate programs and activities. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be and hereby is authorized and directed to transmit duly certified copies of this resolution to the Rhode Island Association of Chinese Americans, the South Asian Student Organization of the University of Rhode Island, the Brown University Korean American Student Association, the Center for Southeast Asians, the Filipino American Association of Newport County, Incorporated, HOPE, H-O-P-E Foundation International, the India Association of Rhode Island, the Alliance of Rhode Island Southeast Asian for Education, and Providence Youth Student Movement for Justice and Love. House resolution honoring and recognizing each and every Rhode Island school teacher as 2021 Teachers of the Year. Whereas after more than a year of disrupted learning, technical and building issues, and health worries due to coronavirus, the festivities celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week on May 3rd through the 7th feel very deserved and needed, but also insufficient. And whereas over the past 14 months, Rhode Island's teachers have risen to face unprecedented adversity during a school year filled with chaos and challenges. and have helped so many students and families to navigate the pandemic, transition to remote learning, and so much more. And whereas parents and caregivers of school-aged children have surely learned firsthand the difficulties of depth of commitment necessary to keep youngsters motivated and on task, and the vital contributions of our state teachers have in the life and future of our children. And whereas the dedication, selflessness, and vision of Rhode Island's teachers has helped thousands of children to continue to succeed and grow, and has earned them the gratitude and acknowledgement of a grateful citizenry. Now therefore be it resolved, this House of Representatives of the state of Rhode Island hereby wholeheartedly thanks, honors, and recognizes each and every Rhode Island school teacher as 2021 Teachers of the Year. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be and hereby is authorized and directed to transmit duly certified copies of this resolution to the President of the Rhode Island Chapter of American Federation of Teachers, President of the Rhode Island Chapter of the National Education Association, and the Rhode Island Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education. House Resolution extending deepest condolences on the passing of Michael B. Battalion. Whereas it is with sincere sadness this House learned of the untimely passing of Michael P. Battalion, the beloved husband of Lindsay Battalion, cherished father of Bridget, Drew, and Christopher Battalion. And whereas born in the city of Providence, Mr. Battalion was the son of Paul and Susan Battalion and brother of Janet Battalion and Brian Battalion and his wife Carly. He also leaves behind his paternal grandfather, Deacon Raymond Battalion, his mother-in-law, Melissa McQueenie, his sister-in-law and brother-in-law, Elizabeth and John Masson, his nephews, Nathan and Jason Battalion, and his niece, Lauren Masson. And whereas Mr. Battalion was a lifelong Warwick resident, he attended Warwick Veterans Memorial High School and earned his degree from the University of Rhode Island. And whereas for 19 years, Mr. Battalion taught physical education and health at Pilgrim High School, and most recently at Windman Middle School. He was also a member of the Warwick Teachers Union, Local 915. And whereas in addition to his family and teaching, Mr. Battalion was a beloved coach and mentor in his community. He was a coach for numerous local sports teams, including Warwick Veterans High School freshmen, junior varsity, and varsity boys basketball teams. The Pilgrim High School freshman baseball team, Pilgrim High girls varsity basketball, and AAU baseball. In 2015, he had coached Pilgrim High School boys varsity basketball team, leading them to a state championship. And had previously been coached with the Warwick American Little League, who, under his guidance, had also won city championships. And whereas the most fitting tribute to Michael Battalion would be a celebration of his life, a life in which each and every day was lived fully and joyfully embraced. He was fortunate to have always enjoyed the total love and support of his family and enjoyed making a positive difference in the lives of young people he taught and coached. He will be dearly missed. Now therefore be it resolved, this House of Representatives of the state of Rhode Island hereby extends deepest condolences on the passing of Michael P. Battalion. And further resolved that the Secretary of State be and hereby is authorized and directed to transmit a duly certified copy of this resolution to Mrs. Lindsay M. Battalion. House Resolution commemorating May 17th to 23rd as Quahog Week 2021 in the state of Rhode Island. Whereas Rhode Island proudly supports its burgeoning food industry, and whereas Rhode Island's fishing and seafood sector is a key component of the Rhode Island food industry, and whereas a recent study by the University of Rhode Island found that the total economic impact of Rhode Island's fisheries and seafood sector is nearly 4,400 jobs and $540 million annually. And whereas the Rhode Island quahog fishery plays a particularly important role in the history, culture, and economy of our state. And whereas the quahog is economically important marine source harvested from Narragansett Bay. And whereas over 20 million quahogs with an ex-vessel value exceeding $4 million are harvested from Narragansett Bay and Rhode Island coastal waters on an average annual basis. And whereas Rhode Island's commercial quahog fishery is characterized by independent owner-operators who typically work alone on small boats and often in harsh conditions. And whereas there are over 500 licensed commercial fishermen and women engaged in the quahog fishery in Rhode Island, and about 250 engaged full-time and year-round. And whereas Rhode Island quahog fishery produces a steady supply of fresh product to the market throughout the year, thanks to a well-managed, sustainable resource and the grit and determination of the hard-working harvesters. And whereas Rhode Island seafood retailers, namely markets and restaurants, provide fresh Rhode Island quahogs to local consumers, enriching palates and bolstering our local food economy. And whereas Rhode Island quahog fishery has withstood the challenges posed by the pandemic, and the Rhode Island restaurant industry has held its own, with both now poised to strengthen as our economy reopens and builds back. And whereas water quality improvements in Narragansett Bay have led to the opening of 1,908 acres of new shell fishing waters in the Lower Providence River in 2021, providing a significant growth opportunity for the fishery. And whereas the Rhode Island Seafood Marketing Collaborative was established by the Rhode Island General Assembly in 2011 for the purpose of promoting and advancing the interests of Rhode Island seafood industry. And whereas a key outgrowth of the collaborative has been Quahog Week, an annual statewide celebration that highlights the importance and appeal of Rhode Island's iconic clam. And whereas Quahog Week has proven successful in increasing consumer awareness and demand and associated sales and market opportunities for quahogs. And whereas the 5th annual Quahog Week takes place in 2021 during the week of May 17th to 23rd. And whereas Quahog Week 2021 features a large number of restaurants and markets throughout the state offering quahog-based specials on their menus and the display cases, all highlighted on the seafoodrhodeisland.com website. Now therefore be it resolved, this House of Representatives of the state of Rhode Island hereby congratulates the Rhode Island Seafood Marketing Collaborative, the Rhode Island Shell Fishermen's Association, the many partners who have joined together to make Quahog Week 21 a premier statewide event. And be it further resolved that this House hereby encourages all Rhode Islanders to support Rhode Island's local quahog and seafood industry by participating in Quahog Week 2021 and enjoying Rhode Island quahogs throughout the year. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be and hereby is authorized and directed to transmit duly certified copies of this resolution to the Honorable Daniel McKee, Governor of the state of Rhode Island, the Rhode Island Seafood Marketing Collaborative, and the Rhode Island Shell Fishermen's Association. Is that blue folder yours?